"I've got half the precinct in my backyard and someone just called 911 on us," Mark muttered, staring at the flash of blue and red lights slicing through the trees. It'd be hilarious if it weren't so ridiculous. A dozen officers, some still wearing badge clips, others in casual department polos, a few flashing department tattoos, stood frozen mid-burger bite as two patrol cars pulled up, sirens still blaring. The kicker? Mark wasn't just some neighbor. He was the police captain, the literal boss of the responding unit. And across the street, wine glass in hand and smugness oozing from every pore, stood the queen of suburban control herself, Karen Wilkins, head of the HOA and self-declared guardian of neighborhood standards. She had no clue who she just tangled with. Neither did Dispatch. Mark and his wife, Eliza, had been looking forward to this day for months. After years on the force, they finally bought their dream home in the quiet suburb of Sycamore Glen. The kind of place where lawnmowers buzzed every Saturday morning, kids raced scooters to catch the ice cream truck, and neighbors waved at each other just because. Well, most neighbors. Karen was the outlier. From the moment the moving truck rolled in, she had been watching them like a hawk. First it was a note about their non-conforming mailbox. Then it was the safety hazard of their slightly askew-welcome mat. After that, she left a folded flyer warning about unsanctioned use of string lights on shrubs. Mark thought it was a weird initiation rite. Turned out, she was serious. Deadly serious. But today was supposed to be different. They kept it small, just close family, a few lifelong friends, and a handful of off-duty officers from the department. Eliza had gone all out, stringing up paper lanterns in the backyard, organizing a modest buffet, and queuing up a neighbor-friendly playlist. The night air was warm, the laughter easy, the food disappearing faster than Mark had expected, and then, the cruisers came. Lights, sirens, the whole performance. Eliza gripped his arm. "This has Karen written all over it." Mark nodded, jaw clenched. The officers who had responded didn't even recognize the address. They were rookies, pulled in from another district due to a mix-up at dispatch. Karen must have called anonymously and exaggerated whatever imaginary emergency she cooked up. A tall officer with a buzz cut stepped forward, hand hovering near his sidearm. "We got a report of possible illegal gathering, too many vehicles, noise complaint, suspected off-duty drinking." Mark raised a brow, stepping forward just enough to show his badge. "Captain Mark Rivas, Metro PD. You just rolled up to my housewarming party." Buzzcut blinked. "Oh." Behind him, one of the younger officers tilted his head. "Captain Rivas?" "Sir, I didn't realize." Mark waved a hand. "At ease, guys. No harm." But someone clearly wanted to cause a scene. His eyes drifted over to Karen, who now sipped her wine with exaggerated elegance. She gave a little wave. "Let me guess," Eliza said quietly. She logged a complaint without leaving her name. Claimed it was anonymous but used HOA language to make it seem official. "You know it." Mark's voice was a low growl. He motioned the responding officers toward the buffet. "Might as well grab a burger. You're here, after all." The tension eased. The officers relaxed, chuckled, and started helping themselves, some even muttering apologies as they stepped away from the cruiser lights. But Mark wasn't laughing. Not anymore. He made his way to the edge of the lawn, just across from Karen's driveway. She stood there like she owned the cul-de-sac, wine swirling in her glass like some sort of suburban scepter. "Evening, Karen," he said, calm but cold. "Something you wanted to report?" She tilted her head, smiling with fake sweetness. "Oh, I just thought there was a disturbance. Must have been a misunderstanding." Mark chuckled, once. "Yeah. Misunderstanding." Then his tone hardened. "But just so we're clear. You've officially made this personal." Karen's smile faded, just a fraction. "I have no idea what you mean." Mark leaned in. "You do. And I'm not just some newcomer you can bully with HOA memos and fake ordinances." She took a step back, but not far. Well, we'll see if your little party keeps everyone happy. Some people appreciate peace and quiet. Oh, I know exactly who doesn't, Mark said, turning on his heel and walking away. Back at the party, Eliza was already pulling up the HOA bylaws on her phone. You thinking what I'm thinking? She asked. Mark nodded. Yep. She wants to play politics. Fine. But she has no idea she's messing with a cop married to a lawyer with a talent for paperwork. Eliza grinned. And I've been itching to use that HOA clause about misuse of board authority. Mark looked up at the paper lanterns glowing gently above them. Tonight, we eat. Tomorrow? Eliza sipped her lemonade like it was a toast. Tomorrow, we start the war. The following morning, the party remnants lingered, folding chairs still dewy with night moisture, half a cooler of drinks left under the oak tree, and a few straggling lanterns rocking gently in the breeze. But inside the house, Mark and Eliza weren't reminiscing about the fun. They were already in war mode. Mark stood at the kitchen island sipping black coffee, his eyes locked on the community Facebook page Eliza had pulled up on her laptop. There it was, posted just after midnight, an anonymous neighborhood concern complaining about unlicensed events, potential underage drinking, and traffic congestion affecting emergency access. The only thing missing was Karen's signature at the bottom. She didn't waste any time, Mark muttered. Eliza's fingers danced across the keyboard. I've already downloaded it. Screenshotted it. And I've got the HOA's published event rules pulled up here. She pointed to a clause halfway down the PDF. Look at this. Any homeowner with more than 5 guests must submit an event notice at least 7 days in advance, unless the event is a private family gathering. It even exempts occasions for law enforcement and military families under the Community Support and Appreciation subsection. Mark smirked. So we're actually covered. More than covered. Exactly. But Karen's banking on nobody reading this stuff but her. Let's change that, Mark said. They spent the next 2 hours crafting a post of their own. Not petty. Not snide. Just facts. It included quotes from the HOA charter, a note of appreciation to the officers who stopped by, and a subtle nudge that the event was not only lawful but protected under HOA guidelines, something any board member should have known before stirring up a false complaint. Eliza posted it with a friendly tone and a professional edge that only a lawyer could pull off. By noon, the comments were piling in. Did someone really call the cops on a housewarming party for a police captain? Karen strikes again. She's going to drive people out of the neighborhood with this nonsense. Eliza watched with folded arms as the likes ticked upward. But Mark wasn't done. While Eliza worked the social angle, he dug into Karen's history, not her personal life, but her HOA reign. She'd been president for 5 years. Re-elected 3 times. Each election was uncontested. That caught Mark's attention. He pulled the last 2 annual HOA newsletters out of a box they'd been given as part of the welcome packet. In small print at the back of each one was a line that made him pause. Board elections scheduled for September, contact board president for nomination details. Convenient, he muttered. No digital form. No posted schedule. Just Karen deciding who gets to know what. At lunch, he turned to Eliza. When's the next election? Next month. Why? Mark leaned forward. Because I think it's time someone ran against her. Eliza choked on her iced tea. You're going to run for HOA board? No. You are. She blinked. Me? I was thinking you. He shook his head. Nope. You're the lawyer. You've got the charm and the spine. And she won't see it coming. Eliza grinned. You want me to Trojan horse the HOA? More like level the castle, Mark said. That evening, Eliza typed up her candidate submission, citing her legal background, her commitment to fair neighborhood governance, and her belief in transparent leadership. She used the official submission form Karen had buried 3 links deep on the HOA website, and she CC'd the entire board. Within 15 minutes, Karen replied. It was a terse, clipped email with just one sentence. Thank you for your submission. The board will review eligibility. Eliza leaned back in her chair. She's going to try to block it. Let her try, Mark replied. Over the next week, Karen's efforts to discredit them became laughably obvious. An anonymous flyer appeared in a few mailboxes, warning neighbors about new residents attempting to erode traditional values and neighborhood standards. It was printed in Comic Sans. Mark didn't know whether to be offended or insulted by the font choice. Then came the compliance checks. 2 separate violations were issued, one for improper trash bin placement and another for non-regulation mailbox color. Mark held the latter up to the light. It's literally black. The most regulation mailbox color in human history. Eliza snorted. She's throwing spaghetti at the wall. Let her. They documented everything. Took photos. Requested clarification in writing. And each time, they made sure the board was copied. Then came the twist. A neighbor named Jordan Gwen, a quiet schoolteacher who'd lived in the neighborhood for 6 years, knocked on their door with a nervous smile. I just wanted to say thank you, she said. For what? Eliza asked. For standing up to her. Karen. I've been too afraid to speak out, but she fined me twice last year for hosting a tutoring group in my own home. Mark's expression darkened. She fined you for teaching kids? Jordan nodded. She said it was a business and violated zoning. I tried to appeal. She denied it. I had to pay or risk lien threats. Eliza's voice dropped. Did you keep the paperwork? Jordan nodded. Every word. Within 2 days, 5 more neighbors came forward. Petty violations. Silly fines. Intimidation tactics. It painted a picture Karen had spent years building, a little kingdom of fear and bureaucracy. Eliza compiled the testimonials, formatted the evidence, and wrote a letter addressed to every household in the HOA. She didn't attack Karen directly. She simply outlined her platform and shared the stories of residents who had been silenced, shamed, or fined into compliance. Mark posted it on the community board and made a dozen copies for the local bulletin. The day it went out, something shifted. At the dog park, people waved. On walks, neighbors struck up conversation. Karen's tight grip on the neighborhood psyche was slipping. And then, Karen made her biggest mistake yet. She called code enforcement on a retired firefighter down the block, an old man named Tom Garcia, for hazardous yard clutter. Tom's offense? A rusted hose reel and a collection of potted cacti. The citation was dropped. But the damage was done. Tom went straight to the next HOA meeting, his first in 3 years. And he brought half the block with him. Karen tried to maintain control, but the room was no longer hers. When Eliza stepped up to the front and asked the simple question, would the board allow a vote of no confidence to be added to the agenda? She got a standing ovation. Mark stood in the back, arms crossed, smiling as Karen's expression turned to panic. The tide had turned. But the war? Oh, it was just beginning. The night after the packed HOA meeting, Karen Wilkins sat behind her large bay window with the curtains half drawn, sipping from a glass of red wine and scanning the posts on the neighborhood app. The applause still echoed in her ears. For the first time in 5 years, someone had publicly challenged her authority. And worse, people had clapped. She had underestimated Eliza Rivas. That wouldn't happen again. Meanwhile, across the street, Mark and Eliza were in the garage, surrounded by stacks of paper, a whiteboard covered in arrows and bullet points, and 3 neighborhood maps tacked to the wall like they were planning a political coup, which, in a way, they were. We've got 22 signatures confirmed for the vote of no confidence, Eliza said, scribbling a checkmark on the board. 30's the threshold, right? Mark asked. She nodded. 30 verified homeowners to trigger a special vote to remove the current HOA president. According to their own bylaws. Mark grinned. We'll hit it tomorrow. Jordan's canvassing the North End with Earl, and Tom's already rallied the East cul-de-sac. That man's more connected than Facebook. And he knows where Karen buried the metaphorical bodies, Eliza added. They both laughed, but there was weight behind the humor. Because Karen wasn't going to go quietly. And that night, she proved it. At 2:13 a.m., Mark's phone buzzed. Security alert, movement in the front yard. He blinked, sat up, and checked the feed. A shadowy figure crouched near their mailbox, flashlight in hand. Karen. She was wearing a hoodie, navy blue, with her signature pearls still visible at the neckline, and stuffing something into the mailbox. Mark was already halfway down the stairs before Eliza caught up with him. Outside, Karen didn't flinch as the porch light flicked on. She turned slowly, expression perfectly neutral. Evening, Mark said. Little late for a walk, isn't it? Karen gave a small smile. Just making sure community standards are enforced. By breaking federal mail tampering laws? Eliza asked. Karen didn't answer. She simply turned and walked away, her sandals clicking on the pavement like nothing had happened. Inside the mailbox, they found a glossy flyer. Warning, disruptive influence in our midst, do you know who your neighbors really are? It was covered in vague accusations, misuse of legal knowledge to manipulate HOA protocols, weaponizing charm to divide the community, and suspicious financial motivations behind Eliza's run for office. Mark tossed it on the kitchen counter. She's desperate. Which means she's vulnerable, Eliza replied. And so, the next morning, they launched Phase 2. Eliza filed a formal complaint with the city about Karen's unsanctioned distribution of defamatory materials. Mark submitted the security footage to the postal inspector's office. But more importantly, they went public. Eliza made a video. It wasn't flashy. Just her, sitting on their porch, speaking plainly. She introduced herself, explained the role of the HOA, and calmly laid out the recent efforts to silence and intimidate homeowners. She didn't name Karen once, but everyone knew who she meant. She ended with a challenge. We're not asking to tear down this community. We're asking to build it better. With respect. With fairness. With accountability. If you believe in that too, come to the meeting next Thursday. By nightfall, the video had been shared over 100 times in the neighborhood group. Even neighbors who never got involved started chiming in. I'm in. Well said. It's about time someone said it out loud. Karen, of course, responded with her own video. Filmed from her living room, backlit like a documentary villain, she called Eliza's campaign an orchestrated attack by outsiders, and even accused Mark of militarizing neighborhood politics. It didn't go over well. The comments were brutal. I've lived here for 14 years. Eliza's the first person who's made me feel like this place could improve. You're the outsider now, Karen. Time to go. That night, 2 more board members quietly reached out to Eliza. Off the record, one said. If it comes to a vote, you have my support. Mine too, said the other. Just don't tell Karen yet. She'll implode. And implode she did. 3 days before the scheduled meeting, a new wave of citations hit Mark and Eliza's property. This time, Karen went nuclear. Violation for operating a business from home without a license, aimed at Eliza's remote legal work. Violation for obstructing community view corridors, directed at their 6-foot privacy fence. And the most laughable of all, failure to display community spirit decorations during seasonal celebration window. Mark actually laughed out loud when he read that one. She's citing us for not having pumpkins in the yard? Eliza smiled thinly. Time to finish this. On the morning of the HOA meeting, Eliza arrived early, wearing a navy blazer and sharp flats, with a binder under her arm and quiet determination in her step. Mark came a few minutes later, joining a growing crowd that now spilled out the door of the community clubhouse. Karen sat at the head of the table, lips tight, jaw locked. She still had her pearls on. She always wore the pearls. Before we begin, Eliza said calmly, I'd like to formally submit this petition, signed by 42 homeowners, requesting a special vote of no confidence in the current HOA president, pursuant to Article 5, Section 3 of our bylaws. Gasps. Murmurs. A few claps. Karen didn't move. She just stared. I also have statements from 5 board members citing concerns over procedural abuse, selective enforcement of bylaws, and harassment of residents. Karen's eyes narrowed. And, Eliza added, placing a printed still from the mailbox security footage on the table, I've submitted video evidence of late-night intimidation tactics to both city authorities and our neighborhood legal oversight committee. Motion to proceed with the vote, said Greg, the elderly board treasurer who had stayed neutral until now. Seconded, came from 2 voices at once. The vote was quick, public, and brutal. 8 votes to remove Karen Wilkins from the HOA presidency. 2 abstentions. 1 sobering silence from Karen herself. It was done. She stood slowly. No dramatic speech. No apology. Just a forced smile and a shake of her head. You all deserve what's coming, she whispered, more to herself than anyone else, and walked out of the clubhouse without looking back. The room erupted in cheers. Neighbors hugged. Some cried. And Eliza, composed Eliza, smiled and stepped back, letting the applause wash over her. She hadn't just won. She'd changed everything. Mark joined her outside a few minutes later. So, he said, slipping an arm around her waist, Madam President? Eliza shook her head. I declined. Recommended Jordan win instead. Mark blinked. You what? I never wanted the title. I just wanted the tyranny to end. Mark kissed her on the forehead. Well, mission accomplished. They stood there for a moment, watching the sun dip behind the rooflines of Sycamore Glen, the lanterns from last week's party still hanging in the backyard. The war was over. But the legend of what they did that summer? That was just beginning.